came together throughout our history. Remove the monarchy, you remove the fundamental difference. Now, Tom thinks the monarchy and being a monarchical people is insignificant. I think it's a fundamental belief and a fundamental view towards the world and towards society. So when I say that monarchy is what separates us from the United States, that's a fundamental difference. It's not a peripheral difference. So if we eliminated the monarchy, it would weaken our identity both and our national unity, I think, as well. And one question we'll have to deal with under questions is where sovereignty is going to be vested if sovereignty was removed from the Queen. And Tom, I don't think, has thought of this, or certainly not thought of it seriously, and how becoming a republic would fracture the Canadian Federation.
Thank you very much, Garry. Now we would like to open up the floor to audience questions. We have about 20 minutes for questions, and if you'd like to direct a question to both people or one person here, the person you direct your question to can respond first, but the other person may also have 2 minutes.
Good.
Okay, and you may proceed.
I'd like to direct my question to both speakers, but before doing so, I'd like to make a very brief comment. It seems to me that this discussion is very interesting from an academic and an abstract perspective, but I think it's a distraction from the real problems that we're faced in this country, such as separatism, poverty, unemployment, inadequate funding for health and education, and the question of globalization. In other words, independence, interdependence, and sovereignty. It seems to me both speakers, with the exception of a bit of discussion on Quebec separatism, they haven't addressed the real problems of the nation. My question is how each position is better to solving these problems as opposed to the other speaker.
Garry, would you like to answer first?
Okay, well, I think you're right. What we're dealing with is the structures under which society can function. And I think if either one of us were to say that being a monarchy or being a republic per se is going to solve questions of poverty, we'd be rightly thrown out of the room, or we should be. What we're dealing with is the framework under which things can deal. Now, it does have some impact. If you look upon society in a monarchical way as an extended family, that does affect how you look at things like social programs and healthcare and so on. So that, I mean, I think there's a reason, again, because the Canadians and Americans are essentially the same people in many fronts. But why are Americans tearing themselves apart over public funding for healthcare when in Canada we take it for granted? I think that's a reflection of our different views of society, which stem ultimately from our different views on the structure of society. But you're right, we should be spending time dealing with those issues, not dealing with a problem that doesn't need to be solved because it's not a problem. Now, on the question of separatism, we will be creating a problem. This is what I was alluding to a few minutes ago, and that is, right now, under our federal system, the Queen transcends both federal and provincial government. Okay, authority is vested in the Queen. She's neither federal nor provincial. If you transfer the Queen's sovereignty to the people, as Tom wants to do, the first question you have to answer is, which people? The people of Canada or the people of each individual province? If you transfer the sovereignty of the Queen to the people of Canada, which is what most centralists would want, most English Canadians, federalists in Quebec would rebel as much as separatists, because that would be derogating from the situation today. So when you play around with the structures, Tom tries to make it out as, oh, it's all superficial, it doesn't really matter, we just change the Queen, replace her with a president. No, you change the whole structure, and when you do that, you open up a can of worms that Quebec separatists would love to have Canada become a republic, because it would negate the sovereignty that exists. Sovereignty would have to be reconstituted, and what they'll be voting for in Quebec is not whether to secede from Canada, but whether to create a Canada all over again. So it does have an impact on those issues, but on questions of day-to-day life, you're right, it's not meant to deal with those. We're to deal with those under the power structure.
But the implication of my question was that neither perspective has solved the problems, and I don't think you've answered the question.
Well, I don't think problems are ever completely solved. They get alleviated. If you're saying, is there a one-time
No,
solution?
I agree they never will be solved entirely,
Yeah.
but you haven't shown where monarchy is a better position to solve these problems,
Well,
and nor has the Republican position.
Well, I agree.
I mean, when you look in the world today, there's problems. These problems exist in both types of society.
I agree they exist in both. I would suggest that the monarchies of the world have a better record at dealing with social programs.
Oh,
If you
that's
look at
debatable, sir.
Well, I look at Sweden, I look at Norway, I look at the United Kingdom and Canada, and I think we do a better job. I think Canada does a better job of trying to address social issues than the United States. And I think one of the reasons our attitude is different is because the Americans have a very Republican way of looking at society, as I suggested. Their views on healthcare, I think, is formed by the fact that they are a republic, have a Republican tradition, which
But
is
we
why
have the problem still, don't we?
we still have
Gary,
problems,
I'd
but at least
really
we
like to
can
get
do it.
Tom and to have his moment to speak here.
Monarchists love to compare United States with Canada when comparing monarchies and republics, when in fact what Republicans throughout the Commonwealth want are parliamentary republics. And if you want to make a legitimate comparison, we should be comparing Canada with the Republic of Ireland, or the Republic of India, or the Republic of Iceland, Germany. Those are all parliamentary republics that have equally, if not better, records for defending. You want to believe it. You want to believe it. And they all evolved out of monarchies. Now, as far as the question from our guest here, yes, I honestly do believe Canada becoming a republic will improve things for Canada. Just look at the financial cost of Canada having two heads of state, and that's what we've got right now. We've got a Governor General with a budget of $20 to $25 million a year, which is roughly about the same cost as what it costs to run the President of Ireland per capita. But then on top of that, we have a second head of state that comes and visits to Canada at anywhere between $500,000 and $1 million a day. We also have to pay to have all of the Queen's family come here. What other head of state visiting Canada do we have to pay to have the sons and daughters of them come to visit? Prince Charles came here. It was something like $400,000 a day by the time everything was added up. Where can that money be better spent? Certainly not on $500 a plate dinners and $1,000 bouquets of flowers. So we have an exorbitant amount of money being spent on the monarchy. We have a perfectly functional head of state in the Governor General. It just needs to be reformed, as the prorogation scandal going on right now proves. We need to have a head of state who can act as a check on the power of Parliament. Right now it is not, and the monarchy is at fault for that.
I just have to correct Tom's point about the cost. Visits or tours by members of the royal family other than the Queen or the Prince of Wales are paid for by the organizations that invite them. The costs even of the Prince of Wales, the regimental costs, the events associated with his regiments were paid for by the regiments. So the government pays the security costs. It depends on the particular tour. So this is just another one of the misrepresentation that Tom's organization throws out there.
I made a request through the Freedom of Information Act for the documents, and I have them, and I can produce them. I can place them on our website tonight if you like.
The sovereign
They were
and the
sent
heir
to
to
me a
the
month
throne.
ago.
The sovereign and the heir to the throne, their official tours. Other tours by other members of the royal family since about 1990, early 90s, are classified as private tours. There have been no official public tours by members of the royal family other than the Queen or the Prince of Wales since that time. Now, I actually happen to think they should be classified as official, so I'm not actually advocating this, but that happens to be the state of the situation. And bringing in the prorogation is just absurdity at this point, because the Governor General is acting. If we had a parliamentary republic, the president of that republic would make the same decisions regarding this, because the Prime Minister's request for prorogation is perfectly correct, because sessions of Parliament normally last less than 1 year. So it's gone a year. So don't...
Well, what you said is
not-
totally,
Gentlemen, I'm
what you said is
gonna-
totally false.
I'm going to try and get us to
Totally
move along
false.
here. So,
I'd like to thank both speakers, and I do think that we need to go beyond republicanism and the monarchy to solve our problems. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Next question.
Yes, thank you. My question is for Garry, and First of all, I wanted to go back to the beginning of your talk, where you compared two types of states, monarchies and republics.